Today on Gamers Couch.
Altiplano. Let's go with a German sounding Altiplano. Altesen. German, really colloquial language of the day.
Do you have painkiller?
This is already off to a great start.
And it's not my fault this time round. Welcome to Gamers Couch.
It's the height. We are reporting live from this table at 3,000 meters above something. And we are on mountains, trying to farm, living this... But it's not simple life, because it's probably much harder than our life or other life.
The
probably.
rural life.
The picket fences life.
No, this is the...
that one. No, I mean our life.
Welcome to Gamers Couch. This is gonna be fun. We just skipped 1 week and he's so not in the routine anymore to record a cohesive video that is kind of funny, but also quite informative. I have to teach him again. Anyway, my name is Sarah. I'm the Artist beim Pinselgeschichten owner of this channel, and this wonderful guy next to me is my husband, Daniel.
Bearded alpaca. No.
I'm gonna weave your beard if you... Well, at least he remembers he's still interrupting my intros.
I'm getting the gray lines in here. Can I have them like the squiggly lines?
Sure.
Cool.
Totally, yes.
I'm winning.
Yes, please. I would actually like that. That would be awesome.
Anyway.
Screwing up the intro, but at least being funny. So, we are back talking board games. We skipped a week because there was this tiny event called Spiel. So, yeah, sorry, no time for recording. But we have a wonderful game on the couch, and we go about it pretty much like every week. There's going to be rules and gameplay first. We're going to show you the game and play a few turns just to give you an overview what we're actually talking about. Then we will move into likes and dislikes and have a thumb rating, and then we tell you a few funny stories and experiences with the game. Now, we won't have a teaser for Draw for Initiative this week because we actually published, and yes, all the people that guessed the networks were correct. So there's an iCard popping up now, and that means you can move to the Draw for Initiative video if you haven't seen it yet. Put it on watch later, come back to this video, and now we go on talking about Altiplano.
By the way, sorry about posting the Draw for Initiative thing late on Board Game Geek. I was kind of busy carrying a lot of cardboard around.
No, it was actually on November 1st. You were kind of back, but we had date day. I occupied you with playing all the games. True. We were playing 8 games or 9 games.
I was carrying cardboard to the trash bin because... punching out insert, punching
that
out stuff.
That was on Monday. That was not on
Don't give me. I'm trying to make a believable.
I don't believe you. That's the point.
It's an exaggeration of reality.
But why don't you go my way? Just put the fault on me because I was occupying you with, honey, it's a public holiday. I want to play board games. You can't do anything else. Go away from the computer. I want to play games. So you could have gone. No.
Anyway,
let's talk.
Let's talk about a different kind of plan. And Altiplano. This is not working. I'm struggling to come up with a good... You had a pretty good thing by saying the starting player token, or this guy here, is now called...
Al Pacino.
Because it's an alpaca. You understand, right?
Yeah, I'm good at making puns. Not. But anyways, let's move into rules and gameplay. Have this video maybe be only 1 hour long. Not as long as the Talk O'Clock episode that went live yesterday. That's 2 hours of me unboxing all the games. So if you want to know what we bought at Spiel and what is to come on Gamers Couch throughout the year until the next spiel, you might want to take a look and get a beverage of your choice, and maybe something to doodle or knit or crochet or something, because it's a long video. Just saying. But now, for real, talk about the game, please.
Okay. So, Altiplano is a sock puppet simulator for 2 to 5 players. Takes about 60 to 120 minutes, it says the box, and and it's for alpacas sizes 12 and up.
Inches or
Metric alpacas. So, now, to be... So, Rainer Stockhausen may sound familiar to you from other games, more notably a thing called Orléans or Orleans, depending on how terrible you are with the French. Or if you want to annoy your wife. In this case, I always refer to Orleans, because that... see? How can you not?
Punch.
So
I'm gonna drink my tea of de-stressing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm gonna be calm. I'm gonna be zen. It's my zen tea. I'm not gonna punch you.
I see. So I'm gonna pretend we all didn't never hear about Orleans and just start with that. But don't worry, I will probably be talking a lot comparing this game to Orléans in regards to how it plays out, because they share quite a few similarities, which might be good, might be bad, depending on how you like Orléans. So, this is a bag building game, meaning you have little chits, which are workers, which you will acquire during the extent of the game. And I just see we are not prepped correctly.
No, that's your part. You always do those. I thought you might want to explain.
Okay,
I didn't set up these either, because I thought...
I see. We'll do this properly. So,
I'm quite thoughtful when I prep for shooting.
So this is already going extremely professional for our... Let's call this the new season, because it's after Spiel, and that's kind of how...
You just have to manage your expectations. That's all.
This is not an expectation management game.
Oh, it is. How badly am I going to lose?
My expectations gone in the bag. Anyway, so you will be acquiring workers, put them in the bag, and then draw a couple of them at the beginning of each turn out of the bag, which then determines what you're doing. So in that case, it is also, if you never played such a game, it is comparable to a deck builder in things of the more you buy of a certain thing, the higher the chances are that you have it on hand and then be able to use it. In Altiplano, we are essentially farmers, traders who scurry around different locations trying to procure resources and, either put them to good use, refine them, or, store them for the long winter, which is pretty much just victory points. There's no real winter coming. It's just victory points. But it's still cool. So, in what you do? Well, when you set up the game, you get either by random choice one of these character tiles, or you draft them. I would almost recommend starting to draft them after you've played it the first time, because once you have the rules down, you can have a better idea how that works. So these have a little action space on it, and I'll explain what that means later, but they also tell you what you start with. So I would start with 2 food, 1 wood, 1 fish, and 1 coin. So I'll get...
as you can see, my sheet is off camera, but I have the alpaca farmer, so I'm getting resources as well. I get a coin. I'm rich.
We set this up as a 2-player game. The boards, nicely enough, have little tables there that immediately tell you how many resources to place on there. And there's also the catch, because all resources that you find on these different location tiles are limited as is. So if you ever run out of one of them, you have run out. and can't get it any other way. You can still maybe perform actions that would give you that, but usually that doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, I'm getting these 4, and I'm also getting a coin. And with that, we already see the majority of stuff you will be acquiring during the game. You either have these resources, which also act as your workers, which can be food, wood, fish. There's cocoa bone or cacao bone. Stone,
ore,
iron, or
silver,
yes,
glass, alpaca, wool, cloth,
and
yes.
corn.
And fish. Did you say fish?
Although corn is actually a special thing. Yes, I have, because I have a fish. So everything that is a little round chit is a resource, but also a worker, which is quite easy to visually identify. Then there's money, which are these things here, which you typically don't use as a worker, but you will be spending it for similar actions on the market. There's corn, which will become more important once we talk about our warehouses. And then there's these little cubes, which are actually cards. So all of that will make a lot more sense now when I talk to you about how that turn goes. So we all start with 4 workers. So in theory, I would put these 4 in the bag, the empty bag, take note, and then I will start with 4 workers, which is why I skipped this, put it in the bag thing, and immediately put the 4 workers on my board. So these are the chits I have available for this round to plan, and I can use them to put them on these little round spots on my board. Each player has one of those, and you can see there's some handy little guides telling you what you can do on each. But, and that is the important but, but there's other important buts, but this is for this game.
One sitting next to you.
This is for this game the important one. Each of these areas here corresponds actually with one of the locations over here. So this here corresponds with the harbor over here, as you can see with the little anchor icon. This here corresponds with the village over there. This with the alpaca ranch, as I refer to it. I actually don't know how that location was called properly.
It's a farm.
It's an alpaca ranch.
Yeah.
Then we have a mountain over there. This is the woods. Down here we have the crossroads of the street. And this area here is the market over there, which is important because we have these little wooden tokens or wooden guys that let us move around and do stuff. At the beginning of the game, you get to choose where you start, and that actually is influenced by whom you start with, what you want to do, and so on. The important thing is you have to be at the location if you want to use that action. How do you move from location to location? Well, that's where these little cards come in. You have 1 free movement per round as it is, which is just this thing here, which lets you move up to 3 spaces. So 1 to 3 spaces. And as you can see, that is exactly the amount to get to every other place if you want to. You can also spend food by allocating it here to move an additional space. And that doesn't mean that you have to move 4 spaces in one fell swoop or something. You can move first to this thing, do an action maybe, and then spend this to move to another space, and so on. Movement itself is not an action though, and that is important because you will only be performing 1 action, then it's the next player's turns, and so on. Which isn't critical in the beginning of the game, but might become critical during the game when it comes to who gets what first, which can be rather annoying if someone else steals something right from under your nose, although that is well, it's easy with me. the entire game flow per round is you draw tiles out of your chits out of your bag, and then allocate them here to the actions, and that is something that everybody does at the same time, which is nice because that makes the game go a little bit faster. Although you will probably have one or two people at the table who might take a little bit longer with that, but that's how it goes. And after that, these actions that you have planned are resolved. You get to move around, you can do the actions, and it's always one action per player, as I said, starting with the start player and then going clockwise. Once that is done, you kind of clean up by performing some maintenance tasks, and that brings me to the stack, because there's this these things here which I will handle off camera, but
we don't have a bigger space. But what I wanted to chime in, these here do not correspond with the location on our boards, because for filming reasons and because we have a limited space for the camera, I had to arrange them to fit.
You mean the order?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Usually it's kind of easier to put them in order in comparison to regards to your player board. Just saying.
That is also something that you can use to just randomize the game a little bit more. It's not super crucial where everything is, at least with your standard or default movement action, but it might make a difference if you're using these additional movement spaces here, because they allow you typically only to move one space, unless you also upgrade that by buying another card. Then you can go another 3 spaces, but still you have to use a food item or food worker on there. This stack, as I just said, is also the timer for the game. So once this runs out, and we will remove, so these flow down, so to speak. If someone buys one of these, they move down, and if nobody bought something, then the last one gets removed and a new one gets put down. Once this thing here is empty and we cannot fill up a space here, that then says the game is ending. Everybody has an additional round after that, and then you go into scoring. The other way to end the game is to have one of these locations to completely run out of resources, which actually might take quite some time, although some are easier probably to run out than others.
Let's start.
That's pretty much it. Although I have to explain one more thing, which is important for the end game, but not right now. That is our warehouse. So how do you get rid of these? Because you will be starting to amass more and more. So if you're using one of these, let's say I'm going to the harbor and using fish and food to create another food, then that goes into my little box. Then the 2 things I used also go in the little box, and so on goes the game until I have to draw from the bag. And if nothing's in here, I will empty my little box into this bag and then start drawing again.
So this was your turn and I do mine now?
No, not yet. But we can do that. So this was my first action.
I'm at the woods. I spend 2 food to get a wood.
Okay, then I'm using my movement action to move myself over to the market area. And since movement is not an action, I still get to take an action. So you can actually move before or after taking an action. And then I spend my food over here to get 1 additional coin.
And I'm going to move as well. I'm going to move to the farm. I'm going to spend my alpaca to get a food.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's some things don't actually require a worker. So at the market, for example, this says I can pay money to buy either one of these things or one of the contracts that are on there, which I probably will do. So these here have a combined cost. So the lowest one is always typically the cheapest. This costs 1 coin, and the higher up you go, you have to pay additional coins. So if you want to get this one here, you have to pay 4 plus 1, a total of 5 coins, which makes this rather expensive. you buy this by spending the money and being at the market location, which is important. Another important thing to take note of is you're not allowed to buy this extension that does the same thing as your character, because then you would be cheating, because the rules say so. Well, not the cheating part, but the part where you're not allowed to do that. Another thing you can do here is to spend a coin to get one of these contracts. And even if it might not be super clever, I'm just doing that right now to show you how that works. And Sarah, by the way, already passed, meaning she doesn't get a turn until...
I already reset.
Until everybody else
I just need Al Pacino, and then I can start the next turn whenever you are ready.
Until everybody has finished. So you can buy these for a coin, and these work as kind of missions. You need to send the required items onto this card, and then it'll be worth victory points at the end, and also gives you some corn, which we will get to immediately as soon as we talk about, or continue talking about, the warehouse, which I was so rudely interrupted.
No, I was just saying I'm prepped. You can do whatever. You just have to pass Al, and then I can say the next turn.
I see. So
he's rude.
Just for the joke of it, I'm buying this contract. You can only have one unfulfilled contract at a time, meaning I need to get some fish and a cacao thing bean on here. The thing with these missions is. Once you put your little worker on here, it is out of the game, meaning you can't use it to do something with it. Also, the thing doesn't count for the endgame scoring anymore. I think now I should quickly talk about the warehouse. So the endgame scoring, we have these little references, and you can see that in the endgame, certain things are worth a different amount of victory points. Surprisingly, money is worth nothing at the end. So is food, fish, the alpacas, and corn. Every other token is worth 1, 2, 3, up to 4 victory points. So by fulfilling this contract, the cacao bean is not worth a point anymore because it is out of the game, technically speaking, and the fish is not worth anything. But so with this, I would turn 1 victory point into 9 victory points by fulfilling that. However, if you are able to see this, the cacao bean has some interesting trade opportunities here. So you don't want to fulfill this too early. You want to kind of work with the bean, if you ever get one, to get some food or some cloth, or maybe even some of the glass stuff, which is worth 4 victory points. This is also pretty much how the entire game works. You will be trying to reuse all your stuff that you got to get better stuff, and then have a higher amounts of victory points. And now we talk about the warehouse. So the warehouse, as it says here, can store everything except for food, so you cannot put these in here. There's an action on the village that lets you, send stuff to the warehouse, and you have to put them here. So if this would have been my turn, I could have maybe put a fish here, moved over to the village here, and as an action, placed some of these into the warehouse. If you do that, there's a couple of rules. First off, you always have to start on the bottom left part. And if there is already a row started with the type of good that you have, then you have to place the thing in the same thing. So if I ever send, let's say I'm sending in another turn, I'm sending some wood here. Wood doesn't go into the fish lane, but the next fish I send has to go in here. And if I, let's say, send a cacao bean, I would put it on here, and so on, and it keeps on stacking. You don't have to have completed a line to create a new one, but you have to fill up lines first before creating a new one with the product you are using here. So for example, if I'm I'm loosely just stealing stuff here.
I'm gonna make sure you put it back in the right way.
If I'm sending 2 fish into the warehouse, I could put one here, which completes this line, and then put the next one here and start a new line. Once you have the left part of the warehouse completed, you go the same way about the right part. At the end of the game, if you have a fully completed line, you are getting the victory points that are next to that. So these 3 fish are worth 2 additional victory points. So the fish themselves in the warehouse still count as, according to this, which is unfortunately 0, but the wood is still worth 1 point, and the cacao bean is also worth 1 point, in addition to whatever you get for completing a row there. Also, the warehouse is a good opportunity to get rid of tokens that you are not using anymore. You might find yourself in a situation where fish isn't that terribly useful to you, but it might be good enough to start stacking up other stuff that is more valuable, and then try to fill in these high value rows that are on the other side of the warehouse. Which brings us to corn. Corn is a little bit special about that. Whenever you acquire corn, typically you have to place it immediately in the warehouse. So if I fulfill, for example, my contract here at some point, I immediately get 1 corn and have to place it in the warehouse. Now, corn is kind of the warehouse wildcard. While corn itself is not worth anything in regards to victory points, the big cool thing about this is you can place it with any other thing on here to just start filling up the line, which is super useful. Beware, if you're only placing corn here, that still the rules apply, meaning you can only fill up this row if you are placing corn in here. You cannot play or start something else there. So you might want to wait for some gaps to happen before acquiring corn, or well, maybe if you place the corn down here and are able to move goods up, that's also a good way of doing it. So I'm now...
1 fish goes back to you, the others go... No, 1 stays with you. It was your own
here's
fish.
Here's another fish.
Oh.
I'm not done.
I have the glare. I didn't see it was a fish.
I'm not done yet.
I just want to make sure that you don't lose.
Also, the wood belong... No, the wood does not belong to me. I have my wood here.
Just 1 fish.
And I think Did I place the fish?
Yeah, it took it from there.
So one more thing.
Sorry.
I'm a little bit late because we already finished our turn, but I just want to highlight that this also works. You don't have to actually be able to perform an action to place your little guys here. So what I should have done probably at the planning phase of my turn, which I would think it's prudent if I can still do that because I was rushed into playing my turn from doing that. You can, for example, place...
Since this doesn't go on to we played a full game and I'm going to win, yes. It's not going to go into the book. It's fine. So otherwise, no.
In my planning phase, I could have done something like this, like placing the wood here and the fish there. Obviously, that is not enough to perform any of these actions because I would need food or another fish here or a stone to do the crossroads action. But you can leave them there for next turn because if you have them down here, you only draw up to 4 new workers from your bag because this is where we are currently at. So the crossroads show you how many workers you are drawing from your bag. So you always start out with 4 and you always draw up to 4 in here. So it's almost as if these spaces are non-existent. However, if you start placing your workers on this board, now I have 3 free spaces, not 4 3 spaces. Free spaces. Freedom! And get to draw 4 tokens from the bag. Yes, I totally realize that I probably don't have 4 tokens to draw from the bag, but we will see.
Because I had to put them from the card into the bag because I had 5 tokens in total.
As I said, we will see, which now means the cleanup phase is happening. So for that, these guys here move 1 step down and we get a new little tile over here. And this is how we kind of progress and time through the game. Now, I have to draw from my bag, but oh no, the sock puppet is empty. So I will be moving my little box in here, which is an incredibly useful move because I've just seen there's 3 tiles in there. So
but you go through the motions to explain.
I have drawn 3 tiles. If I have less than 4, then, well, that's what we call tough luck. You also move your card back, you have your free move again.
And then you pass Al Pacino to your wife.
And then, yes,
because now I am...
Al goes over.
Hi, Al.
And we go back into the planning phase. This time, since I'm starting on the market, actually, it might be a good idea to do that market action once more. And, let's see. In fact, one of the suggestions in the game is to make sure that you have enough food, because a lot of the starting things that you want to do involve food, and later on you want to use these additional cards for additional moves, so you will be having more and more workers. If you use this wood and stone action on the crossroads, you increase the amount of tiles you're drawing from the bag, which means you can at some point have up to 8 tiles. And to effectively use them, and we really like our efficiency here, you have to be able to move a couple of times. And as I said here, additional moves still cost food to perform, regardless if it's just one space or multiple spaces.
Al is looking what you're doing. He wants to play.
I see how this works. So
sorry.
This is probably what I'm going to do this turn. I'm also just for the heck of it.
For the kids.
I'm doing my little.
And now I can play? Wonderful. I'm at the farm, and my personal role says I spend the food and I get a little Al Pacino.
And if I haven't said it, if you acquire a new token, it always goes into the box. That way the game kind of ensures that you will always see all of your workers coming out of the bag, because you will collect them in your little carry box until, well, you emptied your bag. I will use my tremendous merchant abilities to procure another coin.
Money, money, money. I'm using another farm action with an alpaca and a wool. A food. I get a wool. Because it's getting cold. I need a sweater.
Now I am making my move. 1, 2, 3, over to the harbor, and then spending my harbor action to get another food.
Yeah.
And typically you get the...
I'm going to join you.
You are getting the token from wherever it is located at. So these tokens have fixed locations. You will always find wood in... surprise, the woods, the forest, stone over there. However, you might have a marketplace action that gives you certain resources. That just means you're taking it from the location where it is originally from, even though thematically you would be buying something or trading something. So if I had a cacao bean and would trade it in the woods, because that's where this action has to perform, I'm getting a glass. I'm taking this actually from the market space for the glass bowl, but I don't have to be at the marketplace, just to be super clear about that.
Can I make my turn now?
Yes.
Because I joined you, and I make a boat.
You're making a boat. Okay.
I make a boat, which means I get one of these cards, and they give me a resource
and are worth victory points.
And I want a cacao bean, so I get that right away into my cards, and the card gets...
It's a pretty strong play. I think, so this is the entire game. You will be running around, you will be using actions. I mean, I can explain some of the other stuff that is in here that is interesting, or a little bit, well, it's intuitive once you've seen the game, but might not come off as intuitive from this video. So you'll on here you'll get additional tokens that you will be drawing out of the bag. Sarah already showed you the boat cards, which are worth flat down victory points at the end of the game. Also give you 1 token, and these stacks here are always open, so you get to choose which to pick, which now immediately makes it more important to be the first to maybe get a certain boat. So, for example,
cacao boat.
So, for example, I'm probably screwed because the card that gives me a cacao bean is gone, and the tile here that produces a cacao bean will be gone at the end of the turn, and I don't have the money to purchase it. Which makes this contract very difficult to...
Is another cacao bean tile in there?
Maybe.
No, I'm just wondering now, because I never realized that I could screw you that badly.
But yes, you have to be aware that there are some resources on this board that are notoriously difficult to get, because you cannot get all of them with your base actions. You will usually have to pick up one of these tiles or one of these special cards that will give you access to that resource, so that then you can go further. So cacao is very potent because you can trade it in for cloth and for the glass over there, even though you can get to cloth by, well, starting to pick up alpacas, then using alpacas to get wool, and then using wool to get cloth. But the process,
that's 3 steps.
The process
instead of
is
one.
so long and arduous. Mind you never lose any of your workers. So once you have at least one of a certain type of worker, you can keep on reusing it. And even if something like the marketplace here says you're selling your alpaca, it's more of like have the kids play with it, and their parents pay for having the kids play with the alpaca.
It's called a Streichelzoo.
Yes, or the silver here. So if you play something on here to get money for it, you are getting the resource back and the money. So that would be also an interesting engine. Money itself is generally not useless, but very limited in its use. You can buy these tiles, you can buy new contracts over there, and that is it. And sometimes these tiles have the money tokens on here, and that is also the only exception where if I would own this thing here, to use this, I actually have to put the money on here in the planning phase. So I would have to put 2 coins on here to use this action during my turn. If at the beginning or in the planning phase I only have 1 coin, I can put it on here, but I cannot use the action or during my turn when I sell something at the market, then up this to 2 and use the action. So that's a little quirk you just need to be aware of. Other things to note are these cards, which you can get by using the build a building action, which requires 2 stones. And these are also worth flat down victory points, 4 instead of 2 for the boats, and also increase the value of one of the resources by 1 for each piece you have in the end of the game. So if you have this, glass itself is worth 4 victory points, each piece of glass that you have either in your warehouse or in your bag. And this makes it worth 5. So you could use, for example, this to actually make fish worth something, because typically fish would be worth 0 victory points, but with this, every fish you have is at least worth 1 victory point, which makes these quite valuable and useful. I think I mentioned these cards. If you're here, you can buy them for 1 coin. They just go onto your player board, and without food, you still cannot use them, but if you spend food, you can now move also up to 3 spaces instead of just 1 space. So this is an upgrade to your additional movement actions. And as with anything else in this game, you can charge these up to have a later really cool turn with a lot of actions, with a lot of movements. To get your action spaces free and do all that. As I said, once these tiles run out or you entirely empty out a location, you will have 1 last round, and then it goes to scoring. And again, you get these points in the warehouse are additional points. You still get points for wares in the warehouse. So if you have, let's say, 4 glass in the warehouse, it is worth 16 victory points just for the glass, plus whatever you have here in completed lines, plus the additional house cards that you might have here, plus the boats that you might have there, plus the contracts which you might have here. And that's pretty much it, I think.
The mission cards, and then we're done.
Yes. So there's these are called an expansion within the manual, although I would almost also recommend to introducing them with, let's say, maybe the second or third game you're playing this, because they're not really difficult to grasp. So these are mission cards like...
we're still here. Camera.
These are additional missions with some conditions that can yield you additional victory points. The idea here is everybody gets to draw 3 cards at random, picks one to keep for themselves, and gives the other 2 to their neighbors. If you're just playing with 2 players, you obviously just give 1 to your neighbor, and the third card goes back into the box. And these have like stuff on here, like who has the most iron ore at the end of the game, who has... or if you're the first to have a certain amount of stuff, I think if you're the first to complete a contract, if you have 3 contracts, and so on, or if you're the first to completely fill up a space in your warehouse, which make the game a little bit more unpredictable. If you want it, you can obviously leave them out. I guess that's why they're called an expansion. But they also add some uncertainty to the game, because if you would, in theory, be able to at any time determine who's in the lead, because you see what resources someone has. It's not a secret what someone is buying.
You can see the warehouse at all times.
You can do that. You can also, on your turn, you can check out these cards, which are still there, if you want to pick up one, or the contracts over there, or the houses. At least we do that. I think the official rules don't mind that either. You can also look into your bag to see which workers you still have left there. Obviously not looking in the bag while you're drawing the workers, but that's pretty much it.
That's the game.
I'm done. I have rambled a lot and still made it in almost 40 minutes.
I'm very proud of you. And that leads us into the next section, likes and dislikes. Just like Daniel, I'm going to compare this game a lot with its cousin Orléans.
Let's try to
let's try to let the wife finish a sentence first.
No. Go ahead.
No, not on camera. So, I'm going to say something about the game without the comparison first, and then I'm definitely going to compare. Yes. Try to make funny things. But not in my face, and don't distract me. So, what I like about this game, for one, is that it is just looking at it. I mean, not the game mechanics per se, but looking at it. We're not on this camera anymore. So try to do that at the front camera. Hold him higher when he's looking over the board.
Now, please.
Yes. I said no
efficiency. We talked about
please,
this.
Don't distract me. So, just looking at this game, it is gorgeous. It is color-wise right up my alley. Very warm colors. So, when I was punching out all the cardboard pieces, I already enjoyed myself just looking at it. I do like the odd shapes of the single locations. I don't know why I'm so fond of it. Maybe it is because, well, it's not the standard rectangle.
It makes the game look a bit more dynamic.
Yes, that's maybe it. And I do like the size of the player board. It looks kind of overwhelming at first with all the icons, all the stuff that's going on, but it is very clean, meaning, okay, it is sectioned off with the colors so that you can distinguish each of the locations easy enough. So I really like that. And you don't have a huge board. And what I like is that they didn't try to combine the two, the warehouse and your player board, and have a big one, which they could have done easily, but they kept it modular. Yes. I really very much like that. Coming to the game mechanics, it's wonderful, and it is very well, it reminds me a lot of Orléans because you do pretty much the same moves. It is the same basic thing that you do in a turn, but they changed up things here and there enough so that you don't feel you play the same game with a different theme onto it. So the whole thing about the houses in Orléans, that right-hand side of the board, is non-existent here, which I very much
comparing to Orléans.
I am, yes, moving very, very smoothly into that. I do like that this whole section is not here, but we do have a street thing where you move up, which are kind of like the knights. Was it the knights? Yes, right? It was the knights in Orléans.
I'm still not talking about Orléans.
Yeah, whatever. So I liked that I recognized things from the other game, but not to the point that you say, oh, this is just a different theme, or like 2/3 of the game are the same than Orléans. No, not the case. It's maybe almost half, but it is recognizable enough so that I feel comfortable to go into this game with just a quick look into the manual and making sure, okay, this is different, this is different, this is different. Okay, I know how this works. I'm not stressing with the first game. I really like the timer thing in this game here, that it is, well, it does a dual job. It is the timer, and it is also an expansion for more possibilities at your player board. So I really liked that little thingy in there. And one thing that I want to say as my last, I love this. No, it's actually two things. Al Pacino is awesome. I really like it. It's so goofy. But the invention of this little cart and the way...
We call it the box.
Yeah.
It is able to carry stuff.
Yeah, but what it does, it decreases my frustration with Wheaton's disease.
Not at all.
A lot. No, it already does. It's bad. Funny stories, guys. Funny stories. I'm going to save that for later. But I do like that you that you get the chance to rotate through all of your workers. That you definitely decrease the occurrence of a bad draw, because, well, you really rotate through all the workers with this little tiny invention here, which was one thing that I really struggled with a lot during the Orléans plays, because, well, I have Wheaton's disease. I'm sorry about that. It extends to drawing from the bag and card stacks and such things. So I was very happy that they introduced this mechanism and twisted the draw for chits there a bit, and, well, just helped me out there. So it was like a vitamin boost for my gameplay. And it's so simple. It's just that tiny little thing they changed, and it made such a huge impact. So yeah, now I'm quiet and I'm going to nod and be very interested in what you think, because he didn't tell me yet. We don't talk about these things before we have the games on the video. So now
I will now make a conscientious effort to say Altiplano a lot, just to have not this video be about Orléans all the time. So what I do like about Altiplano is also the artwork. It is very friendly, very approachable looking, which I mean, it's almost. I don't know if I want to recommend this as a family game, because it is quite involved, but it is simple enough, I think, that you can totally play this as a family game, and that whimsical artwork is also doing its work there. I can see kids playing that and being into that a bit more than let's say having Lutheran, would that be what? I don't know what the art style of that other game is called.
Let's say Christian 1500s.
It looks a little bit dry because it has this historical look to it. It's still gorgeous.
And what game are you talking about? I had to, my love. I had to.
So, the thing is, Sarah said the most parts I like about this too. Obviously, Al Pacino is a front runner for things that are just funny and cool to use. And I think the most I can say about this are the differences to Orléans, and yes, this is an iteration upon that entire design, and I think for the better, because and buzzword incoming, it streamlines the entire process of what Orléans is doing by combining things, making decisions more obvious, or forcing you into decisions more easily rather than giving you a plethora of different things. So away have gone the different building tiles that you can choose from, which end up whenever someone said, I'm building something in Orléans, then you just handed over the stack and said, let's continue this game because this might take forever until you get through those stacks. Very nicely eliminated by having the building tiles effectively flowing down and also being the timer of the game, which got rid of something else that I think we were a bit annoyed by, but other people also were not super fond of, which are the event tiles, which are not present here at all. Although you still have the notion of a timer from the event tiles, which I think is a good replacement. I can see that you could play this game with event tiles, but that's just another external thing that you have to shuffle around with and deal with. Here you are more focused on your own engine and in building that. Also, I very much like that this game is taking up so few space as it does. Now, if we compare Altiplano to other games that are very similar to it, which I mentioned enough already, you should be missing here now the big map where we have your guy running around and building houses, scoring points, getting resources. That is not here at all, but you still have the little feel of that by having your guy move around these couple of locations, 7 in total, which still has you move someone around, and a location or where you're at with your guy is suddenly important. In Orléans, it wasn't important at all, at least not for the actions you want to take. Here now, suddenly, this becomes a much more interesting decision process, because not only are you interested of can I get to where I want to, which is with your free movement action never a problem, but maybe with your additional movement actions, but do I have enough tokens to justify using multiple moves, or do I need to get somewhere to set me up for my next round? And this makes it really interesting and compelling, and I very much like that about Altiplano. Also, just due sheer space. I mean, this is way more compressed than what the
I was just thinking in my head, this is the size altogether. If this would be a rectangle, this is the size of the player board that you have in the French game. Yes. So this is really way smaller, but it doesn't feel. Oh gosh. Camera? Okay.
And suddenly the camera didn't like us anymore. But you were saying...
it doesn't... the whole thing, yes, it is way smaller and compact, but it doesn't feel...
Like you're having less types of things you can do?
It is just as involved and just as thinky. So I didn't feel that they were streamlining it to the point that I would be missing something, if that makes sense.
I think this game successfully removed stuff that I think was a good choice to edit out. You may have
At
noticed,
least for this game.
you may have noticed there's no there's money, but there are no resources like the wine, the cheese and stuff that got turned into the actual worker tiles.
Yeah.
So this merges together all those things. And obviously, if you would compare Altiplano to Orléans with all the expansions out there, then Orléans is a much richer game with a lot more stuff that you can do, especially if you're going with the expansions. And some of them kind of felt to me like exploring in a different direction. And if someone came back from that exploration in game design and then decided, let's make this game again with what I've learned, I think Altiplano is that game that came out of that. Which is
it's way less intimidating than its ancestor.
It's I would say it's faster to play. It's faster to set up. It's as intuitive, I think, as Orléans felt, because I didn't think Orléans is a very
no, but it looks intimidating. It's not.
Yeah, it is complex, but you get an idea of what you want to do, and the same is true here, simply because you're limited to just a certain amount of stuff at the beginning.
Another thing, sorry to maybe interrupt, but it just popped into my head what this makes it's even more approachable, and I would definitely put it into the category of family game, but not as your first game to explore, of course. But once you have a few other games, you can definitely venture into this. But the theme makes it very logic on what you're doing. Yes, you go to the farm, you have the...
What do you mean, the scholars improving your victory points by as a multiplication with your guild houses?
And the knights are... having fun all the time in the alcoves and make people. No, but
the production's changed.
Exactly. It is. Of course, there's fish at the harbor, and you can build a boat. Yeah. Of course, you have wood and cacao in the woods, and when you go to the mountains, you can get some stone or silver or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it is mounted in or anchored in real life, and the location in real life, the Andes, is kind of hard to farm, and life there is not only pink unicorns and I don't know, cotton candy and stuff. So it is so recognizable that it makes playing. It makes the mechanics even easier to understand and to play. So I think this definitely moves it into the family game category.
Some things I like about this that are kind of genre specific, which I like about Orléans as well, are... in this, yes, you have workers that you're placing, but you're not really taking away a spot from someone else, which I like that this has less conflict with other players, which I rather quite enjoy. You certainly have then at some point a battle for resources, because, as I said, these tiles will be going away. You will be trying to store them in your little warehouse to get victory points. But that little roughing up at the end of the game is, I think, to be expected or fair to not have it just an entirely solitary experience there. But with the workers being placed on your own boards and you expanding your board, you're not taking away a space from someone else. There's no restrictions how many people may be at a given location. That to me hits a kind of sweet spot, which actually makes me want to try this. We have only played this with us two so far, but I very much like that this game also goes up to 5 players. There have been a lot of up to 4 player games in the recent releases, and usually our group are 5 players, and this seems surprisingly fast enough even for a 5-player game, simply because everybody's doing the planning phase at the same time, and clearly you need a little bit more time to run through the actions with so many players. But Actually, yes, you have some longer going on combos at the end of the game, but at the start of the game, it's really...
Yeah, it's one action, sometimes two actions if you're really lucky with what you draw and how the locations are arranged at the desk, at the table. But it is... I'd say the first third of the game is one or two actions and one travel.
Yeah.
So that is fairly quickly to do. Only in the, I'd say, last third of the game, you go into the combo mode, maybe.
Talking about getting into each other's hair, which this is also the reason why I actually prefer having this warehouse over the community stuff where you send people off to do
the city hall thing, right?
In Orléans. So Altiplano does that by, yes, you want to send out your guys, you still are restricted by spaces, but there will be the rush at the end of the game to fill up your warehouse and fill missing spots, or alternatively go for the last remaining maybe high value stuff that is on the board and doing that, which makes it also a little bit exciting because you don't really know if you're in the lead or if that will be enough to win. If you're playing with the mission cards, maybe someone has the I need the most stones thing and suddenly tries to get one more stone to make him qualify for that, or you will go digging through these contracts and see if you can maybe fulfill one of them and score some points there, getting a core and then filling off a row here or anything like that.
And one thing that comes with the game genre in this case is I never felt that I was stuck and couldn't do anything because the game was designed that way. I was stuck and couldn't do anything, but that was entirely on me. And again, that will go into the funny stories.
Also, but if you're stuck, being stuck in this is you only get to do one action. It's kind of
sometimes that is one thing. Or I mean, like being stuck. Since you keep your workers, you will of course have more chits in the end to be able to do something with them. You could very easily also say, okay, you have to pay the food like you have to pay the coins, and then you would be very stuck once in a while. But since you keep them, you're actually never stuck, and I really like that. So there are very many paths to gain victory points, and just because one player is, say, at the alpaca farm and wools the heck out of it doesn't mean that that will be he will be or she will be in the lead. You could very easily go to the stone thing or the wood thing or whatever other thing and gain just as many points, if not even more. And you can do a little of everything or focus on something, and still you are having the same chances as any other player. So there's not one path to go down. You have to do that, otherwise you're not going to gain any points.
Just to highlight some of them, one valid path is to try to be able to grab a couple of these cacao beans and then either go from there and acquire glass and wool, or as Sarah said, you could cloth, or you could go the alpaca farm way, where you try to pick up alpacas and make wool with it, because if nobody else has alpacas, nobody else can do wool, and you need wool to make cloth, although someone else who was faster than you with the beans might also attempt to get the cloth before you're then mining them out.
But still the wool is 2 points, so you still accumulate quite a couple of points there.
Same goes for a route where you're saying, well, I'm more into mining, and then you will try to chase the silver, which is effectively only a way for you to get that is by having iron ore and food on that thing. So you're trying to chase for the iron ore. And if you take a look at this board, iron ore you can't get that anyway. Same with the cacao beans. So these
you get them from
These
here.
you have to acquire using one of these symbols or one of these cards.
Yeah, or you get them maybe on one of these starting
I
rolls.
think they all have just the base fish and stuff.
Okay.
But
yeah.
that is a good segue, because that's why drafting these in later games becomes a little bit more interesting, because then you can see, okay, this guy has a little bit more money, so maybe I can go early for one of these, grab them, and then find my way into what I want to do there.
You hardly ever play the same game with these rolls.
Yes.
If you change up the rolls, you will venture into other paths to victory and see, how can I play this game differently and still win or make as many points as I can with what I've got. So I like that it changes the games up.
And as you said, this is way more viable now with the box, because you will get what you bought guaranteed at some point, and it's just a matter of in which order they come out.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough a player to be able to look at this and then immediately say, well, I see some imbalance here or there. I know there was...
Al Pacino actually looks kind of stable, so I wouldn't say he's not balanced.
As far as I can tell, I don't think there's a bathhouse in here, and if you've played Orléans, you might know what I'm referring to. There's a tile in here, actually, that does something similar, but that effectively lets you just... exchange one of your tokens on your board for one of your tokens that is on here by throwing the other one away.
Yeah, that's not overpowering.
Yeah. And since money is not worth anything at the end, you can also not run away by producing billions of coins and doing that. I mean, you can try, but there's not much to be gained from that. Just more opportunities, different opportunities to produce stuff.
Yeah. Shall we rate?
Yes.
Yes. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
not surprised, right? There was no dislike in there.
very, very clear thumbs up. I can totally see why this was unfortunately gone very fast at the show. I mean, I guess more people like me were around that said, well, I liked Orléans. Maybe I should pick up Altiplano because it seems similar. And yes, it is similar. But it's similar in a good way, as in someone sat down and thought, okay, let's take the best out of this and
make a new game.
Add an alpaca.
Yeah, Al Pacino's really awesome.
Yes.
But that moves us into the last section, funny stories and experiences. And I was saying Wheaton's disease earlier, right? So I found out that, for one, I'm really not able to read sometimes, and people don't make the same mistake that I did. In one of the games, it so happened that the setup workers that I got, it's really hard to read, right? It says food, alpaca, and wood. Important, there's a 2. So I just gave myself 1 food instead of 2, which kind of hindered me because, well, I was very early on at the harbor, got my second food, which I thought to be my third food, and I was really not doing well because, well, I was starving for one. But I found out another thing as well. At one point, if you have enough workers, it's I'd say mid-game. You rotate through all the workers. That is true. But if there's very many of these chips in the bag, you can draw so badly that you cannot do anything for 2 turns. And yes, I should get an award for that, because I think it's a skill to draw so badly. I had either no food or only food. So I was sitting here for 2 turns like, I can't do anything. This is so... What the heck?
Which is the empirical truth or proof for that. Even if you're a world-class game designer,
you cannot.
if there's a slight hint of randomness in your game,
I'm gonna find it.
You will not be able to hide that away from Sarah. She will.
Nope, I will. It's like a beacon. I go down that path and I'm going to explore what it's like to lose that way. So I was sitting here, it was actually last night, for the first part being totally frustrated because what the heck is wrong? And then realizing, I gave myself one too few food coins. That was the first third of the game. And then I really did speed up very, very fast. And then I'd say just over the mid part of the game, just over the hump, just a smidge, into the last third of the game, I was drawing shitty left and right. So for two rows, two turns in a row, I remember, and it could be even a third, I don't know anymore. But I was sitting here like, what's wrong again? So so pretty much half of the game, I was just, didn't work. And still, I had a 3-digit victory point thing. So
which we
you can still come back
know
from.
If that is good or bad yet, but.
I was better than in the first game, yeah. And we tried to. We played with missions last night. We didn't in the game before. So the thing is, I finally got my first. So one of the cards was I had to be the first player to fill up one of the rows in the warehouse. And let's say first half of the game, but not first third of the game, I got the first row, and I said, ha! Ta-da! I finished my mission, and he was, but I have a row already completed. I was like, no! And just silently filling it up with corn, la la la, not saying anything, and me not really paying attention.
I didn't know these cards were secret.
True, yeah. But I was like, that's a hat trick. 3 things going wrong for me. This is such a challenging game.
It was not your game.
No, but I still came back to a 3-digit victory point thing in the end. So I was kind of proud of myself. I had lots of glass. Well, I had all the glass. So that really made a difference. And you had to go for cloth with your cacao bean, right? Did you go for
that
cloth?
was the last thing. I actually, my setup said I could get a cloth by using. I went full alpaca on this one.
Al Pacino.
And was about to get cloth, and then I realized, I still have the bean, and I'm on the forest by. Let's use the bean to get that thing, and that obviously was the last one, and that made her cry once more.
Yeah, because I was set up to go for exchange the cacao bean for cloth as well, and that is the one thing where you can take something away from the other player when it is pretty much the last resource on whatever given location, and the other player is first. So that's the only thing where you can't get anything. Something
I learned is if you think you have enough food,
you don't have enough food.
Don't. I think I had 4 or 5 of these food tokens, and I still at points I was like, if I had one more move. And it's tempting to look at your thing and say, oh, well, I have everything's yellow in there. But remember, you can park them on here and leave them there. So you have them as kind of out of turn moves later on, which is extremely useful. So if you're in a position where you think, I don't know what else to do. I could get another food, but I don't want to dilute my bag of drawing. Then no, get more food. It's surprisingly important for survival. Also in this game.
Yeah. I heard him so often in the first game saying, no food.
and also saying, I could get another food. I think I'm fine.
So we talk to ourselves when we play, and when we learn a new game, we talk out loud what we think and what we're doing, just to, well, get the game flow down. And it was, in the first game, was quite often, well, what am I gonna do? No. Him planning, I could get enough food. Oh, I actually have enough food. It's just mumbling to himself and then not having enough food.
Yes, actually not having enough movement was more painful later on, but yes, that's the thing why food still is important during later parts of the game.
It keeps you energized. So also in the Andes, it's no different there. So any otherwise comments, ideas, information, something, or shall we?
I never claimed them to be wise, but I think I'm done with talking.
That's good. So now he's not going to screw up my outro. So let me try this. No thing. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Let us know if you maybe have this game as well or want to. Can you do that without the and just do the pointing maybe? It's less distracting. But well, we keep the tradition of screwing up the throws, the in and the out throws. So, where was that? Oh yeah, let us know in the comment section below if you by any chance got this game, have played it, if you have any funny or cool experiences, what you think about it. I'm very curious to find out. Or if you maybe are interested in the game and want to buy it, because I'd like to know that too, and I think he would also know. Okay, I like to know. If you want to talk to us, again, comment section is yours, but you can also visit us on any of the social medias that are in the description box below, as well as on Board Game Geek. There's geek lists for this show and also my other show, Draw for Initiative, so you can talk to us there. We talk back, so be prepared. And we're going to be back next week with a new game on the couch. Have fun, take good care. And if you happen to watch the Taco Clock unboxing thing and you want to see one of the games rather sooner than later on this format here, you also have to let us know either in the comment section of the other video or in this one here. That's totally fine. You just have to tell us. And now, my love, you can do the waving thing and say goodbye. With an open mouth. I knew that it was coming. I know you so well. Have fun, folks. Happy weekend. Bye-bye. You're even funnier than Al Pacino.